I will record. So welcome everybody. It looks like most people, I think everyone has been on one of these calls already. I think, Mark, I've seen. Willem, have you made it to one yet? No?
This is my first one, I think.
This is the first one. Oh, well, we better make it impressive for you then somehow. Once again, I don't really have an agenda for this. I'm just happy that people are here. And, you know, with 26 signed up, we got almost half. So that's pretty cool. And we'll see if people drop in. So, you know, I was thinking about a topic, although they are unscripted for the most part. And what I wanted to, hi, Carolyn, how are you? There's a lot of people in my online life that are here now. That's cool. What I thought, and this might work since we have a small group, I wanted to try to experiment with something today and seeing it how it is around a table and has always been sort of discussion based and not one person leading. What I thought I would try out today is to open the floor up a little bit and start off by asking what's important for you. And just to see if maybe questions arose around that we could maybe collectively all answer. You know, if there's something, if there's an aspect in one of our lives that we might like to see a little bit differently, or something that we are seeing uniquely differently that we want to share, to sort of do that and try to make a bit of a round table around it. What are your thoughts there, folks?
Yes, sounds good. Sounds okay.
Thanks, Mark. There's a vote of confidence. I love it.
Sounds interesting to me too.
Well, we'll see what happens, right? There's no pressure to participate. When I look into the group now, I mean, we've got, you know, a bunch of coaches here. We've got a good variety of people, and I thought it might be interesting to just experiment with this idea. So, does anyone feel brave in sharing what's important to you? What's Bruce, nice. Well, Bruce, go for it.
Can you hear me okay? I think I'm. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So full disclaimer here, I'm not a coach. Feel very honored to be allowed into this room that's full of coaches. I'm actually an epidemiologist by training. So for me, the epidemiology of COVID is pretty important, and trying to get people to address the biology, because viruses don't care about economics and your personal rights to assemble or anything, and address the societal pressures as the result of trying to address the biology, and then put that in the context of what we often talk about on these talks, in terms of you know, being present and a background ether, for lack of a better word. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on how do we address the biology, and how do we address as a society the collateral damage to the economy and suffering, and the unfair distribution of suffering, both unfair in terms of who tends to get sick, and unfair in terms of which businesses tend to be hardest hit, and still address the biology. Again, you asked what's important to me as an individual. That's what's important to me as an epidemiologist.
I did ask.
I just think I posted several things on trying to address the biology, and especially trying to get across the concept is the big difference is exponential growth, and that's why we have to be so careful to not let it get out of hand, because it's one thing to double from, you know, 1,000 deaths to 2,000 deaths over a certain time period, but when you start doubling from 400,000 deaths to 800,000 deaths over the same time period, that's some serious shit, guys. And we need to invest a lot in trying to prevent that, while recognizing that, that hits economies if it's not fair in its distribution. But so how could this group help with that? How could society in general help with that?
Mm,
So they're just a little problem for you to solve today in the next hour.
no problem. Sandy's gonna solve it for you right now.
Okay, good. Take it away, Sandy.
Oh, you can just unmute yourself, Sandy, if you. Oh. Sandy, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sandy, did you mean Lucy? Because
That is exactly what I mean. Lucy, my apologies. Who's this Sandy person I'm trying to talk to?
what matters to me is my identity. No, I don't.
Awesome.
I want to add something onto Bruce's question to us, because it's those two things, but what's adding to it is the fear of the possibilities that people are imagining might happen, and how that's affecting their response to what is actually happening. And for me, it's been really, I live in an area where there's 27 houses, and these 27 homes are like the diversity of the entire world in their view of what's going on with COVID, and their response to whether that energizes them to plan for the future, or make the most of the moment, or panic about the past, or just stay indoors and get so scared that everything that happens they overreact to. And when you're looking at the communication around COVID and its implications, people are hearing it from those different perspectives. So no matter what you say to society, they're all going to hear it through the different filters of how they're experiencing it. And so that adds a rich, diverse complexity to how do you communicate it. And some people believe that the government are deliberately not telling them things, and other people think it makes sense not to be told because we'll just get scared. And so I'm just fascinated by all the different judgments and perceptions that take away from the fact of viruses do this, they do that, and this is what we need to do in response, because that's getting lost because we're people, and because we've all got different perspectives and we're all hearing something different. And then people are talking at me as a coach or as a friend, and I'm like, I can't even understand how they're getting so scared, because they have the power within them. So I almost sound like some kind of raving loony of like, well, yeah, okay, keep yourself separate, but you know, viruses have a plan. They'll move, they'll sort themselves out. We just need to ride with it for a bit. So that's my added bit to it.
Nice, thank you, Sandy. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Lucy. Appreciate that. Bruce, what do you think? Or does anyone else want to chime in? What do you think?
Certainly, all those. I mean, that's as you all know as coaches, and even I know, everyone filters through their personal experience, so you can hear or see the exact same thing, but internally see or feel something completely different than the person sitting beside you. So yes, and having worked in well, people will often say the government. I make a very clean distinction between working for the public service and working for as the elected government. And the public service, in theory, is supposed to fulfill the policies of the elected officials of the day. But there's, because there's so much uncertainty about what can happen or will happen, in my view, that uncertainty should be communicated, and people can handle that, being exposed to that uncertainty. But I can tell you from years and years and years of experience, it's next to impossible for official communications to come out from a public service or government organization to admit there's uncertainty, because they know they will be slaughtered on in the media and by the opposition by admitting they're not certain this is exactly what we have to do. So that's another filter that really complicates things. So anyway, sorry.
Hates Dominic.
No.
Hates Dominic. You
Hey, Dominic.
started this, Michael, by asking what's important to you. So I'll go back to Bruce, because Bruce, you spoke about a lot of the sort of outside issues around this, you know, policies and things that are required in science that tells you one thing or another. So what's important to you about this?
Great
Well,
catch, Dominic.
To save lives in a balanced way, save lives, optimize the system in terms of saving lives, saving suffering, physical suffering from the disease and long hauls and all that stuff, and minimizing impact on the economy and people committing suicide and living in fear and all that stuff. How do you optimize that? Recognizing that viruses don't care about economies and your beliefs and your freedom to assemble and all that stuff. So we have to, in my view, I'm sure I'm biased, but I'm an epidemiologist with medical training. We have to address the biology. How can society do that in both an effective and efficient way?
Hey, Bruce. Hey, Bruce.
Yep.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking this is, I can follow you. You and I can go into a coffee shop or a bar and have that kind of a chat. You probably know more about it than I do. Probably your ideas are better than mine. But the question that Michael asked, and I think when we get onto these calls, is like, we can go do all that stuff with our friends out there. The thing that these calls and this understanding does is it says, here we all are living in this reality, this actual stuff out there. We've all got opinions about what's out there, but there's something to be said about, so what is that for me inside? Like, what's going on inside me? Because the out there is being created, and I'm not preaching this, I'm saying we've come to this understanding, and that's kind of how we gathered in this place, is that what's going on out there is coming from inside of me. So when I say this is out there and the government's doing this and those things are happening and people are going to die, it's coming from inside me. And when I look at it and I kind of say, I don't like that. I don't like that that's going on. I don't like that those people aren't following things or whatever. It'll get solved inside me first before I have any great idea about how I'm going to solve it out there. And it's interesting because even words like how unjust the virus is, it shows no fairness, right? In terms of the most vulnerable people are being. It's also like, even that is coming from inside me. Life is always fair. It's always fair. And I'm saying it's not fair. It's not fair what it's doing. And what that creates is a conflict within me. Which complicates my ability to deal with this effectively. So anyway, I'll pause. I wanted to throw some of this in. I wanted to bring this back to us because I think that's what, you know, part of like why we gather on these days is about transforming ourselves.
Absolutely, Dominic. Bruce, what do you think with that? Or anyone else for that matter too.
Well, I hear that I'm making a judgment on fairness, and that's definitely from within. It's probably from 66 years of training and living. I guess I'm not expecting perfect fairness or optimal, but for better or worse, I think we're blessed as humans to have choice, and we can choose to help one another or not. And I think we could do, again, I recognize it's a judgment, I think we could do a better job of helping one another these days. By recognizing some things, well, most things are out of our control, but also we do have influence as individuals, and collectively we have even more influence. And that's why we've, as humans, evolved to where we are because we work together. We would have been eaten by all the tigers and run over by all the rhinoceroses or whatever if we hadn't worked together as families and then tribes and then countries or whatever. It's precisely because we work together that we've survived. And I just, again, I recognize the judgment on my part. Think we can do a better job now by remembering to work together.
What I love about what you're saying, Bruce,
yes,
is you're so caring. It's shown up in other calls, right? You really care. You really are out to make a difference. You really care about others. And as I listen here, there's a frustration and disempowerment, or a sense of, how do I do more? How do I do more of that? All of that happens within you. And that's the thing that's interesting, is how do I, and by the way, in our understanding here, we know that all the filtration and all of the resistance and the diminishment of that power is all in thought. And so how do I release thought, let go of thought that diminishes the power I am, which, by the way, is the potential and possibility of the entire universe. That's how much power you have around this virus, right? But it doesn't seem that way, because this is going on and that's going on, and the research is saying this, and those things are happening. And so as I engage in all of those thoughts, I take the potential and possibility of the universe, which is who I really am, and I diminish it down into something, and that frustrates me. And I feel disempowered, and I feel like there's nothing I can do about this. So I think that's kind of what I'm seeing in this.
Bruce, we'll let you mull that over for a minute. Thanks, Dominic.
I need mulling time. Yes,
we all need some mulling time, don't we? Well done, Dominic. Way to point back towards the original question, which is what's important for you. Carolyn, you were up next, and then Willem afterwards. And if you want to use the raise your hand button, you can. Or the group is small enough. If you just put your hand up in the air, I'll catch it. So, Carolyn.
But when you asked the question, what came up for me was what's important to me is having the systems and structures in our society that really allows people to connect with who they are and their unique abilities and strengths. And as Bruce was talking, what came to me is, as we do that, that's how we come together. That's how we are able to solve these ridiculously large questions and issues on our planet that seem to divide. But there's something about the potential and the potentiality within each individual that, as that shines, what they can contribute and what they're able to contribute somehow opens up things for other people as well, and coming together. That's just what came up for me.
I like it, Carolyn. Thank you. And we'll get Willem to chime in, and then maybe we'll revisit again. So Willem, go ahead.
Mine's a little more selfish than everyone else. Everyone's so much more caring about other people. I'm just, as I said in your Facebook question, like what's important to me is living a virtuous life. Especially the last few months, is trying to be the best version of me possible, and then hopefully with that inner peace, it goes outward. And I find that when I am at peace with myself, that is much easier to deal with people in the real world, even if I don't agree with them or whatever it may be. there's going to be people I disagree with, but like my number one goal is to never let it get too far in terms of hostility with other people I disagree with, I should say.
Nice. So what are you seeing in your life now that that lets you know you're working towards living a more virtuous life? How are you noticing that already happening in your life?
More friends that are like similar minded. Just people that want the best for themselves, but also the best for others. I was low on the number of friends I've had for a while, but ever since I've been committing myself to primarily Christianity and Stoicism, like I found that I've been able to make and retain a lot of friends, just because when you're open with yourself, it's easier to open up to other people. For a while, I was closed off. So this past 2020 was a good and bad year, but for me personally, a lot of personal growth in that year. So
nice. This is sort of an open question for everyone. What does opening up to yourself mean for everyone? Yeah. Listen, we're small enough. Unmute yourself. Start talking. If there's if there's a bit of a conflict, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Indeed,
So,
Lynn. Yeah. Go ahead.
So how I see it all is that it's about acceptance, accepting what is, accepting the unknown, and with everything what is going on, many of us are fighting what we don't know. So what's showing up for me is that through the whole conversation is with accepting whatever is, because we just don't know whatever is going to happen. We're just trying to second guess. Will come the freedom. And the question that you asked before, I looked at it as continuing to do stuff, fix things like this, meeting with people who can nurture me and give me the knowledge to help me to accept or build upon my acceptance, so that I can share that with others to help others grow in their acceptance. Because I think what happens is that we're just always constantly at battle with ourselves. Because as soon as we don't want to accept something, then it becomes a problem. But when we accept it for what it is, then it's not a problem anymore. And it plays out, because no matter what's going to happen, it's going to play out whatever way it wants to play out anyway. No matter how much thought process I put into it or somebody else puts into it, it's just going to happen. Because one thing I know is that I ain't got no control over it. See, so as I say, being in forums like this and groups like this and just personally just growing. And I use that word in sense of growing as in knowledge and wisdom, because I believe that a lot of my natural self, my younger self, my childhood self has been taken away from me, trying to focus on everything what's outside of me. Because when I was younger, I accepted everything. Got smack, accept it. I still go and kiss my mum and dad straight away, because I was little, because I was a baby, didn't understand. But then as I got older, you'd hear the voices, don't accept this, that's right, that's wrong, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't. And then that's what comes up to play for me. So it's just the acceptance. That's how I see it, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, thanks, Mark. That feels in line with what Lucy was saying at the beginning as well. I'm making that up, but that it felt similar. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Lucy, go ahead.
Hi, when you asked the original question, what matters to you?
What's important to you?
Well,
Yeah.
I saw it written in what matters. So then I saw it written as what's important, but who knows? But anyway, what came up was that two answers really. One was what's important is whatever's on my mind at the moment.
Oh.
And then the other side of it was, well, actually, you know, what's kind of like always important, the fundamental things that truly matter. And I really noticed how hard it was to get out of the, like, what matters is what I'm thinking about right now, which is why I kind of got caught up in the like, I want to see the others sorted out. I want to see the others explaining things. And it's been really interesting to just kind of stop a moment and filter that back, because I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the frustration and feelings that my life is more complicated because there's so much anger in the world. And I do know that that's coming from me. And of course, I don't know it because otherwise I wouldn't be in this muddle. So I get that bit. But I'm really, really surprised that I'm so frustrated. And it just feels like I'm in a world where I just, you know, I'm ending up wanting to bang people's heads together for goodness sake. But that's a frustration that's within me. So that's what matters to me at the moment, or is important to me, is I've got to chill out.
Nice, Lucy. That's really honest. Do we have thoughts on that? That was wonderful.
I can say something.
Yeah, please, Suzanne, go ahead.
I was just thinking at the beginning, you asked the question and I thought, no, I don't know what's important to me. Gosh, my daughter, you know, I'm thinking, and then Bruce started talking, we talked about COVID, and then the others chimed in, and they're struggling, and there's all the conversations that have been here. And and all of a sudden it just, you know, really the only thing that's important to me is that I feel good. And I think that that's what I've been so focused on this whole year, is feeling good. Because when I feel good, I can help. It doesn't matter. I am of service to other people, because if I feel good, then I meet people who are struggling. I do that every day now. And it just has if I feel good, I can help them feel better. And I really think that was a good question, because I really think that's the most important thing to me. And that's what, like, this group and Dominic's group and everything. So that's all. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. I'll chime in on that a little bit. I am in full agreement there, Suzanne. What's important to me these days is, and I'll say it as being happy. You know, what feels good is maybe even a better way of saying it. Suzanne, you can unmute yourself. We can go back and forth.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm curious, so we you know, Bruce started us off with sort of an observations on things and how they look a little bit more externally, and what we could do collectively to maybe fix some things that are likely important to all of us. And then, you know, we've had other comments culminating now in, I just want to feel good. That feels to me like a fairly, not a divide, but a spectrum. Where Dominic, yeah, see you. So where does feeling good individually, or the importance of feeling good, fit into your original question, Bruce, if I may point back to you? And then Dominic, will have you come on next. And feel free to pass. And feel free to pass too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, I certainly agree, or I have experienced that when I'm at peace, I communicate more clearly, and I listen better, and it appears that I can help myself and others better. Yes. I was just going, I guess, pretty literally on what's important to me. I don't mean it's important to everyone. It's important to me, and I realize it's because of my personal history and filters and experiences. that COVID and all the side effects are important to me. I guess that's all I'll say for now. There's something else bouncing around my head, but I can't put it into words yet. It has to do with choice. It has something to do with choice and yes, wanting to help, but recognizing help is, in my point of view, was not necessarily helping. But in my bias, I guess I don't know if it's semantics or not. Yes, we aren't separate. We are the whole. We have the power of the ethos, whatever you want it, however you want to describe it. I just think we can do even more if more people realize that and contribute, work together.
But where does that start, Bruce? Where does that start?
Well, yes, starts with me.
Yeah.
And with us helping you people as coaches, and me, even though I don't call myself a coach, I guess I'm kind of a coach. I don't know. Helping others to see that potential in them as being the whole. So in that sense, yes. I guess we're all talking about the same thing. It's just different semantics, and I'm talking about it in terms of choices for increasing or decreasing the probability of spread of COVID, personal choices versus, that's a very specific thing versus choices to feel good and choices to recognize that thought and that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm going around in circles, I think. So let somebody else talk.
Well, we'll let you mull a little bit more on that one, Bruce. Dominic.
I think what Bruce was saying is really good, like very important in that sort of trying to figure that out. Well, what Lucy said and then where Suzanne went with it and you went with it, Michael, was such a great summary of how the question hit me. But I hadn't seen what Lucy said, where this is almost, I think what Lucy said is this would be true every time. When you get asked that question, there's kind of like, oh, you're asking me what's important. Well, let me look, hang on a second, I'm gonna check. And then there's the, well, what's on my mind? Like, what's going on? How did I wake up this morning? What am I worried about? Who knows, right? So there's this thing that if you ask me tomorrow, it won't be the same thing. And I for example, when you first asked it, I was like, what's important to me or what matters? And I'm like, well, it's my mom, and my mom's, she's like 93 and there's some things, and it's kind of like a problem, right? And it's like, because I'm dealing with it, like, oh, so then that's what's important. That's what matters, right? That's what's, since you're asking me, that's the thing I'm thinking about. But the distinction between, but that's kind of what's floating around right now as kind of getting my attention, versus the what's always there, that's never changing, that's important. And then where Suzanne went, and then you chimed in as well, was around, well, at the end of the day, like even the thing with my mom, like that's important because there's these issues and I gotta help with them, and it's sort of like diminishing my enjoyment of life or whatever to have to deal with this, and it's I don't like that she's having to go through that stuff, and how can I help and all that. But there's an underneath that never changes. And then it's kind of what we pointed to, and Suzanne said, it's like, I want to feel good. I'm like, I'm disturbed, let's say it like that. I'm disturbed and I want to go back to being whole. And I guess the thing in this understanding that we have is, well, really that never happens. You never actually are less than whole. So you're under some temporary illusion because of your focus on something that you think you're less than whole or less than joy or less than peace and all of that. And then maybe what matters all the time that never changes is this wanting to go back, well, wanting to reconnect with all that I am, wanting to be all that I am. It may be the non-changing most important thing. Yeah.
Do you think that, for the room, do you think that, because Mark alluded to this earlier as well when he said that, you know, that I'm paraphrasing Mark, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you said something around how the youthfulness or childishness was taken. And I'm wondering, Dominic, as I listen to what you're saying, is that I wonder if the problem isn't that we're trying to, as you've already suggested, get somewhere where we don't, you know, we don't really need to try too hard to get somewhere. We just need to maybe see through some layers of thought. So I wonder if the problem itself is endemic in the way that we're trying to approach it, you know, by trying to get back to rather than,
you know. Well, maybe it's an issue of an order. Like, because as I listened to Bruce about wanting to make a difference and wanting to, like, I want to do something about this. And I feel the same way, like if I think about my mom and, you know, I want to help with certain things. But what it is I have been engaged with her from a really, like when I get engaged with her from a really sort of irritated, frustrated, impatient, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe, you know, she's deteriorating in a particular way, like this sort of against what this reality is. Boy, I am not good. I am not good. These are not moments of me at my best. These are not moments that I am proud of. And when I step back, what I really see is how here's an area that's really important to me that I want to make a big difference on. But because I am not aligned and nor am I taking the time to make that important, because this is important, I need to act on it. Yeah, no, what I'm starting to see in all of this is, no, you don't need to act on it. You're useless. You are so in your head. You are so coming from a terrible place that any action you take is only going to create more trouble. So the most important thing is to first reconnect and then take another look at your problem, take another look at what's going on, and let's see where to go from there. So yeah, that's kind of what I see in that.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned your mom. My son has pointed that out to me a few times when we visited, and you know, my mom struggles with her iPad or something, and I get frustrated with her, and in my desire to be helpful, it's almost like my frustration arises out of a desire to be helpful. It's a little bit strange, rather than just being comfortable with recognizing what my mom is asking and helping her to solve it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little all over the place here in that, but they're yeah. Maybe I have something to mull over there. Certainly something about, I don't know, coming back to your own center before you can be useful to people around you. Anyway, what other thoughts do we have, folks? Jessie Lynn, are you reaching in?
I was hesitating. I've been going back and forth with this. My hand on the button, taking it off. So I'm coming at this from such a variety of, my son had COVID last September. He's still having symptoms. So I get this, like what Bruce is saying from an epidemic, I don't even know how to say it, from your perspective, in that way. My mom, 2.5 weeks ago, it went into my mom's home and started with 2 residents, and now there's 80 something and 12 deaths. So I've had a lot of panic, I've had a lot of thinking, I've had a lot of fear, I've had a lot of love. And, you know, when Dominic's talking about his mom, like every time I went into the home last night, it's a very scary place to go into. You have to go through all these things, which I'm glad they're doing, but it's scary. I have my mom who's sitting in her room every day by herself. Her meals are delivered to the door. Like there's no interaction happening, you know? So I can see it from a mental perspective as well. But my mom's also kind of in a stage of dementia where sometimes she remembers things and sometimes she doesn't. So I also see a beauty in her having a fresh day every day and not realizing how long this has gone on for, you know? So when I show up, like what Dominic was saying, or Michael, what you were saying, sometimes I get frustrated, like she can't, if the radio goes off the CBC, this is just like, oh my God. And then she calls me, and she calls me so many times in a day. And sometimes I'm just like, oh Jesus, it's, you know, and it's like, and I'm just like, press the plus button, press the minus button. I can get frustrated in these tiny little moments, but there's a bigger picture of just being with what is. Am I scared for her? 100%. Am I afraid when I go in there that I'm going to bring this, you know, something back to my son? 100%. But at the same time, when I show up just with love and just with being and not fighting what is, it is what it is. Like I was on a call with a bunch of families and they all want to know who's the person that brought it in. Are they going to be like, what's going to happen to them? Like none of that matters to me. What matters to me is that every step that can be taken is taken. But when I show up from that space versus a scared space, it's so different. So for me, the action is just being, and it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be like all of these things. But just being with what is okay. I don't know if any of that makes sense or that's just it just sounded like a ramble now that I said it, but it just is. Whatever it is for me right now.
How do you all think we recognize within ourselves when we're coming from that place of accepting what is? What are the signs that you notice when you're in that space versus when you're not in that space?
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. Yeah. Mark, did your hand go up there? I'm not sure if Dominic's did as well, but
yeah, I was just going to say probably it would be when you forget that there is stuff going on and then you remember, then you realize that it is what it is. So it's like so for me, my mind will forget, like I'll be thinking about something, really worried about it, really scared about it. And then I could watch a film and then forget it. And then something brings it back into my mind. Oh yeah, but remember this is going on. Oh yeah. And now it is what it is, sort of thing. So that's what I was going to say.
For me, what will be
go ahead. Yeah, Martine.
more loving in different parts of my life. Love is not an easy thing for me. And to see more love in myself and others and in the world. And particularly my sister, who I was estranged until all the shit came up in March last year. This situation is still ongoing. And I noticed that each time I heard the phone ring, she's the only one who phoned the landline, is okay, c'est la fatigante, which is not a good word in French. It's okay, not today. I have to see her not as a burden, but as a real person. And then she goes on the rampage of rumination, and I get pulled back in. And then when I hang up, I says, well, missed another opportunity to see that that she's lost in her thinking. And because it's been going on for 9 months, but my patient is not quite there yet. And I was short on patient in the first place. And yeah, so it's to be able to come from a more loving place more often.
Mm.
And to see, funnily, I can see that with clients. Sister, another story. And we were, like I said, we're strange. Like for me, she's more like somebody, like you had a neighbor when you were growing up, and then the neighbor moves away and you lose touch. Has the same importance to me. And so now I have to try to remember more often or during the call, not after I hang up, that I could have more compassion and more loving. And that probably will have a bigger impact than me telling her stop ruminating. And so that will be, yeah. And it will have an impact on different things, I guess, if I come from a loving place.
So how do we stay in that loving place more? And I don't mean it as a doing. I mean, I have an answer for that for myself, but sort of curious, how do we get to, how do we get to spend more time in that loving space? Walking in nature, yeah.
I'm not saying I'm any good at this, but the whole time Martine was speaking, I just laughing. I don't mean that's going to come across wrong, but how marvelous the universe is at providing learning opportunities. And oh, you've been pretty good at coaching and you figured out how to do that with strangers. Great. Okay, now try this with your sister. We'll see how you do with that one. And there's lots, it's not just Eckhart Tolle, I keep referring to him because he's the one I've read the most, but lots of them, they talk about, yeah, well, the toughest ones are with your family. If you want to learn patience, go back home and live with your parents or something like that. I don't know. It just struck me as because it's not my sister, I can say to Martine, oh, that's the universe giving you another opportunity to learn this. But if you ask me to do that with my brother-in-law, no way.
I appreciate the honesty there, Bruce. I'm sure that just based on people smiling, I'd say that resonates with just about everyone in the room.
Yeah, that that absolutely resonates, because that I'm in the middle of that, and I go, oh, you're a coach. Yeah. If this was being filmed right now.
No MCC for you.
It's like they'd revoke your MCC credential. Like, it's just in the middle of it. And, this question about, well, what do you do, or what should you do about it? It's like, I mean, obviously you're lost, you forget, right? And generically, what is it? Generically, it's, I've made something more important. Like, I've lost perspective. I've made something more important than love. I've made something more important than peace. At the end of the day, it's going to go to like feeling good, feeling in alignment. But it's like what Jessie Lynn said too, around the converter for the radio. Okay, hit the plus sign 3 times. How many times have we gone through this? But you're making something more important, like that's important, and you should stop bothering me with it. Like you've lost it, right? You've just lost it. And as if that is more important than anything else. And it's, yeah.
That's spot on, Dominic, and sort of brings me back to what I was trying to articulate earlier with my mom, that, you know, if she's lost, you know, an app on her iPad, that's a big deal. And if I'm over there and I'm visiting with her, it always inevitably comes down to, you got to fix this. And it's a big panic for her. And I get caught up in the frustration of always having to do that same thing, rather than recognizing that what I have is an opportunity to hang out with my mom, which, you know, she's 85. So it's almost like, for some strange reason, I think that her problem that she's having with her iPad means more than the fact that we get to spend time together, in my own mind. And then it becomes problematic. You know, I mean, I lose sight of the good of what's happening, you know, in the face of my own infinitesimal frustration with my 85-year-old mom, who is doing amazing. And the fact that she owns an iPad and generally knows how to use it, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in our own, I speak for myself, it's been easy to get caught in what I make important, rather than appreciating the larger what is important. And in this case, it's time with my mother, you know, versus, as I think Lucy said at the beginning, around, you know, what's on my mind in this moment versus the greater importance of what the experience is offering. Yeah. Well, what else have we got today? I love these. This is a great way to start a Saturday, man. Thank you again for being here. If I haven't said that already, it's so cool. Can't read. Oh, this is suing from your mother, right? It's her fault. Eh? What else are we thinking today? What's important? Oh, cheers, Willem. Man, oh, they're great. So let me ask a question. We've talked about some stuff and we've shared some things. What we've talked about, how might that be useful as we come off the call and we all walk away with our own, I don't know, the rest of our days, wherever we are in the world, however much time that is, in terms, I'm thinking in terms of daylight, not lifetime on the planet. But you know, from this conversation today, what might we take away from it that'll be beneficial to us as we go through the week? Yeah, Lucy.
I think what's really struck me is it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. And I really don't want that to be okay for other people. So I keep trying to correct it, because I'd have a nicer life if that was true. But of course, that's not true either, because my good feelings would come if I didn't see those things as wrong. And that's what's really struck me to remember.
That reminds me of something I wanted to write about this, but I'll talk about it. Yesterday morning, Friday morning, I had Julie and I were going to go for a walk, and she was coming back from an appointment, and I was going to be ready, and you know, I had it all timed out, knew how long it was going to take. I'd made the plans, and then was having breakfast, and I had lots of time to make breakfast, and then I reached up into the fridge and I picked up this really nice salsa that we get, you know, this Mexican salsa. And I picked it up and someone hadn't put the lid on. So when I picked it up, it just everywhere. It exploded in the fridge, on the floor, into the cabinet, all over the place. And of course, my first reaction was, and then I got about cleaning it up. And what struck me, and then I was talking to Julie about it. She came home and I was like, so who didn't put the, you know, so I was ribbing her a little bit because it was her. But what I noticed was that in the moment where I was expressing that, it wasn't even anger, we'll call it frustration, right? That I had to clean up now. It was very momentary and very temporary. And it felt to me like it was okay to have that experience, because I didn't have to, I knew that I didn't have to carry it with me. It was almost enjoyable, right? Ah, shit, this happened and now I have to deal with it. And that seemed, yeah, Lynn, embrace it. It seemed fine. And even when I was sort of ribbing Julie about it afterwards, there wasn't any anger, there wasn't any attachment to it. It was just kind of funny. And so there was a very clear distinction on having a reaction to something and being okay with that versus carrying that with me and making something more of it. I mean, years ago, I could have turned that into a 2-week funk had I wanted to. I could have blamed Julie for not putting it on. And then from there, I could have blamed her for, I mean, it just could have snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. So thank you, Lucy, for spurring that in me. But there's something about a reaction in a moment, a thought in a moment, and experiencing that and expressing it is fine. It's okay to do that. We're allowed to do that. It's when we carry it with us that it becomes problematic. And it reminds me of something that it may have been Linda Queering, maybe someone can help me out here, was talking about Sid Banks and how the dude used to get angry, right? He used to get mad and try. And what struck me about hearing this was that Sid would get mad, but the next day he didn't remember. You know, people would try to bring the conversation up and he'd be like, I don't know what. So there's something about, I don't know, in the moment expression that has a purity to it, which I think is really cool, as long as it doesn't become more than that. Martine, please.
It's just a funny thing when you said that. The big difference between Quebecers and Europeans is that, like it's known that Quebecers are the biggest swearers in the world. Now we can use swearers as a noun, as an adverb, as an adjective, as a verb. And things like that, we swear a lot. And the French don't. And it's funny because they stay angry much longer. No, a discussion can last hours. As a Quebecer, a couple of swearers back and forth, and then things are cleared up and we go along. And the French, 3 hours later, they're still arguing because anyway. So it's so we used to say that swearing is liberating, and then things get cleared up and you can move on. But it
Well, they do say that people that swear more are more intelligent. Someone says that, I don't know. I'm holding on to that though. Thank you, Lynn. Dominic?
When you said that about Sid and getting angry and all that, and what Martine just said, makes you think of like, you know, a little child or a baby. Just will just be furious. The toy got taken away, or they've been called to lunch, and it's just, and then they're sitting at the table and everything's good. Like you're like, what the heck? I don't think I could do that. It's like, yeah, that.
So it's Bruce again. So how do we, like having tomato sauce go all over the place and all that, but back to Jessie Ling, you know, she's anger, in my understanding, anger comes from fear comes from uncertainty, lack of control. So, you know, I imagine Jessie Lynn, you know, has no feels she has no control over what will her son suffer or not suffer from long-term impact. What will happen to her mom? What will happen to all? And how does she balance, you know, losing CBC on the radio versus there's X number of deaths in the nursing home? That's to me, that's at a different level and a little more challenging to come present. Is it the same basic core, the same challenge, or is it different, or any words of wisdom on that?
So A Course in Miracles says there are no orders of magnitude in miracles. In this case, there's no order of magnitude in a thought. So my mom forgot how to change the channel, and this is just the most horrible thing, is a thought that gets in the way of my joy and presence of love. If 400,000 deaths in the US that are increasing is a thought that gets in the way of my sense of love and peace, what difference does it make what thought I allow in the way of that?
I love that. There are no orders of magnitude in thought. Was that it, Dylan?
And I'm sure Suzanne could quote it, but yeah, there are no orders. There is no order of magnitude to miracles.
Right.
So for God, he's a miracle. You want a jacket, make a jacket. Did you want a new car, make a car. There's no order of magnitude in a miracle, right? So.
What else have we got, folks? Helen, you posted something. Is Helen still here? Ooh, there she is. Hi, Helen. Do you want to say something about what you posted?
Yeah, well, I suppose I think it might come down to what somebody else said was just feeling good ultimately, but I'm finding a continuing challenge with this, and I'm annoying myself and judging myself and applying another layer of thought on top that I really want this to be over, and that's annoying. I'm annoying myself by, I suppose I see it in a way as, I understand what's going on, and that's nearly worse, because it's perfectly okay to want this to be over and for my kids to be able to go to school and college, and for all of this illness to stop and the deaths to stop and being allowed to travel and shop and do all the things, that's nearly a year. And I really can't help wanting that not to be so. And then I say, that's not helping. That makes me feel worse, because if you're fighting against just the way it is and the way it must be seemingly for into the future, and there is no future and there is no past. And I'm a great believer in being present. So when you said, what might you do? It would be, to kind of have what you want and how you want things to be. I think to just remind myself over and over. It gets a bit tiresome though, that well, it actually isn't really getting tiresome, but I find I have to do it, is just come back to the present, remember our true nature, remember the power of thought, remember what it is that I'm doing and how I'm receiving it and the layer of thought that I'm putting on top of it. And without even kind of going through that as a process or anything like that, but just to settle down, allow my thoughts to go, or my mind to quieten, and just be back in the present again, where everything is perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong, and the future could be anything or nothing, and just be. And when I know I'm there with a hot cup of tea and I'm watching a bird on the tree, or I'm with a client, or I'm eating, or I'm walking in nature, I'm perfectly fine. And I don't have to be thinking, oh, I want this to be over. I really want to be able to get in our car and travel, or go to the airport and go to London, or whatever I'd like to do. And there's a 5-kilometer limit on where we can travel and where we can go. And there's no shops, no bars, no pubs, nothing. And my kids we're all just at home. You know what it's like. We all know. And I don't want that. So I'm kind of going, no, and I've been really well controlled, but for so many months. And then I kind of going, another 6 weeks, and now they're saying another month. And I'm kind of going, oh, for God's sakes. And I was like, Helen, so it's this kind of toing and froing. And it comes down to feeling good ultimately, doesn't it? And stopping that nonsense. Stop it. Just stop it. So that's really what I was kind of saying. I couldn't talk when I was downstairs, so I came upstairs.
Yeah, appreciate you for sharing that, Helen. Yeah. Isn't it funny how when we want something to be different, that holds our attention?
Oh, yeah. Boy, does it ever.
I mean, at least it does for me. When I want something to be different, that's about the surest way I can come up with to make sure that I don't get what I want.
Yeah. And it feels worse. It feels worse for the judging of it, and for the denying of it, and for the wanting it not to be. Stop doing that. But look, then I really don't want to. What date is it now? Another month? How many? Is that 6 weeks? Is it 5 weeks? I'm wanting the spring to be here.
Isn't it so funny how from that one thought of I don't want it to be this way, which you can have if you want, and you don't need to do a whole lot with it. You can accept it and see it as, well, I don't want this. I mean, you can phrase it in many different ways, but again, the one thought is not the problem. It's all the ones that come after it.
Yeah,
It's the
absolutely.
continuation of all of the, oh, well, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pile more
Yeah.
onto it and see if that works.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm fairly successful at stopping it, but I do have to kind of, it feels like I'm doing something to stop something else. But it's pretty effective. Like I'm fine. I'm not raging, I'm not depressed, I'm not, I'm laughing and I'm calm and I'm getting on with everything. And there's another thing that's very similar. It's a problem with neighbors who are right beside us, who, if I had told all of you kind of things they'd said and done, you'd go, oh, that's very horrible. Nobody'd want that in their lives. You may not, but probably you would. I'm a reasonably sane person, and it's not resolved. So that's another thing and they've been sending legal stuff. So we are looking out, and every day we're waiting for something, that's not resolved as well. So that really feels crap. Really does. And when I let my mind go there, it's not fun either. So that's, and I wish that away too.
I love what you just said about letting your mind go down that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
that
say this to other people. It's like your mother-in-law or your father-in-law coming over. It's very like that. I can manage to feel compassion for them and even send them love and good wishes and hope that they will get everything they want in life and really, really mean it. But then if anything happens, like my primitive brain just goes kapow, and I'm just not angry, but just it's a fearful response or a triggered sort of post-traumatic type of a thing. It's not fun.
And there's probably a message in the fact that it's not fun, isn't there?
Yeah.
Or maybe better, maybe there's an opportunity.
Yeah. Oh God, when this is, if ever in my entire long life, there's a learning opportunity, it is this. I mean, I'm a parent of two, a mom of two teens, and all the stuff that comes with that. This is, the most difficult for me personally, learning experience, very significant for me, and I'm going to have to learn. I'm learning, and good things have come from it. Funny enough, I won't bore you with what, but good things have come from it. And I was saying it to my husband. My husband's in it with me. We're like, oh.
I think the good things are the fun stuff to focus on. Not boring at all. But
yeah.
Looking at our last 2 minutes.
Go on. Yeah.
I was listening to Ellen and the neighbors and the kids and in-laws.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, sometimes I do Ho'oponopono or the agape thing with someone. And then I felt kind of a bit of a guilty. So am I doing it because I want the other person to feel good? Or is because if they feel good, I'll be all right.
Yes, exactly. Oh, both. So, yeah.
So sometimes it's doing for the right reason, or just if they're at ease, they'll have a better experiences, or we're connected. But at the same time, okay, was that really for them? Or is that really for me? Because if they're better, then they won't be on my back.
Yeah. That would be a bonus. Yeah, that would be a big bonus. But I don't think it's entirely that. I mean, my husband struggles more with really feeling bad feelings towards them, and I don't. I actually don't. And it's so sad. It makes me sad because I'd love to have them as friends, and that we'd be able to share good neighborly situation. It's so sad. It's very sad what might have been, and which probably may never well be. Don't know. Maybe. There's always possibility in life.
That might be a good note to end on. There is always possibility in life. Do we agree with that? show of hands if we agree with that one. Yeah,
I didn't get to read those comments, but I'm having a quick look. The rabbit hole, wanting and not wanting, the momentum of those nods, and let yourself going down there. Yeah, I think we can never now. Just want to read them before they disappear. Then the next moment and the moment after that. Thank you, guys. Bing bango time. What's bing bango time?
Oh, don't ask. Don't
Yeah,
ask.
don't ask.
Oh, really? I shouldn't ask.
Well, we
Dominic
we need
and
another
Michael,
webinar for that.
Oh,
you
really?
just be careful, Jeff. Just be careful.
There's a Pandora's box just waiting to be opened there, I think.
Oh,
You'll
no.
see it on the posts all through his site, my site, everywhere. You'll see.
Yeah.
That's the fun of life.
Indeed.
Mm.
Indeed.
And a group hug to Jessie Lynn.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And
well,
to
folks,
you, Bruce.
yeah, well, to all of us. I'm going to. Any last thoughts, folks, before we go on our merry ways today? While you're thinking, I'll just say thank you again. Jessie Lynn's got a thank you up there. Thank you again. I just, I've been doing these meetups. They switched online a while ago, but I've been doing these for years now, and it's just been so much fun to connect with people and to have people. It's just been fun to have people to share with and people that are interested, and it's just such a great way to start the day. And I hope they're of value and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
if we're whole, then well, we're all whole, but if we're spent for the hour and 15 minutes, then we'll say goodbye and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And I'll post the replay on the Roundtable page. And if you guys aren't in Dominic's group yet, the Asking It Is Given group, get over there. There's good stuff happening there. And
Good.
I guess that's it. So love you all. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you in a few weeks. Yeah, nice.
Everyone.
I can't believe I just did that. My God, I hope my kids don't see this. They'll be mocking me forever. Okay, see you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a wonderful
Thanks, Michael.
day.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.